welcome to our, meanwhile, 8th episode of DoubleDM Pod, where two Dungeon Masters from Germany just talk about everything TTRPG related, and even not sometimes. How are you today?
I am perfectly fine. It's been a good day for me.
Very nice, very nice. So, since we recorded our last episode on Monday, and today is Wednesday, there isn't that much that has happened between those two recordings, but we started to play more actively on an ARC server.
On an Ark Survival Evolved server, yes.
Yeah. We try base building to make it look nice, hunt some dinosaurs, tame them, and naming them after pop culture references, hard German words, or TTRPG community members.
We have two dinosaurs named Marker right now.
Two
All Triceratops, right. One named Marker 1, the other named Marker 2. And they are male and female, so...
Uh-huh. We'll see what happens.
We already have two eggs. Speaking of eggs, there's also an oviraptor, which is...
you named the oviraptor that?
Yes,
oh boy.
Yes. The dinosaur that increases decreases the duration that female dinos lay eggs. So we get double the amount of eggs now, and we named that oviraptor after a hard German word. And I wanted to say this German word. So everyone who does not know German, pay attention now. Because that dinosaur is named Eierschalen-Sollbruchstellenverursacher.
Which basically means eggshell breaking point making device. Something like that.
It's basically for everyone that has not heard of this, because you are not German, it's the device you use to crack your eggs. Your eggs for breakfast in the morning.
You puncture them so the pressure can get out and it doesn't crack the egg while cooking them.
That's correct.
Basically.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a fun thing you can do in German.
That's the word.
You can just keep adding nouns and nouns and nouns and nouns and nouns until you are bored of it or run out of ideas. I think the longest German word...
I don't even know that one.
Is about 93 characters long.
I think that's the longest English word. I think that's the same length the longest English word also has. Wait, let me check. The longest German word. We will just focus on the what is in the actual Duden.
Alright, yeah.
The longest German word that is in the Duden is Rinderkennzeichnungs-Fleisch-Etikettierungs-Überwachungsaufgabenübertragungsgesetz.
Oh boy.
Which is 79 letters.
That's even hard to follow for a German. That's... oof.
I don't even know what this
word
means.
It kind of makes sense. Kind of. I think it's the Department of Beef Etiquette
something
machines.
Like that. Yeah, we should not get into that, what that actually means, because...
Yeah, but yeah, you can just keep adding nouns until you're
basically
satisfied.
For anyone hearing this that is not speaking any German, we Germans kind of also get trained to speak these long words. Like, if you would hand an American a word that is over 40 letters long, they would just swallow every syllable in it. We Germans just don't do that, because we that's kind of how our grammar works. I was never good in German classes myself, but I think it's just because it's normal to us to just say three nouns punched together without
it's just
any...
everyday words are 3 to 5 nouns punched together right after another in one word, so we're kind of used to it. Even though 79 characters is a lot.
Oh, yes.
That's a lot. And the next thing we should talk about is the Witcher campaign, which starts tomorrow on Thursday.
Yes.
I actually still have to find a reason why I visit Novigrad.
As a mage, that's fairly hard.
Exactly. That's why I'm struggling. But I'll have the workday tomorrow to think about it. So, well, maybe the morning coffee at 5 a.m. will spark some ideas. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we should get into it. Then.
I think we should.
This is basically everything we have for our weekly recap, because the weekly recap was just for 2 days now, or for 2 days, yesterday and today. So how
our topic today are homebrew rules and table rules. What we use, why we use them, and so on and so forth.
So please answer me this in the most simple way possible. What is a homebrew rule?
In the most simple way possible would be a rule you yourself create or alter in some kind of way that makes the dynamic or the feel at the table better for you and your group. Or that should be the reason. But a homebrew rule basically is just a rule you create or alter yourself from rules as written.
Okay. Simple enough. Well, when you say that, obviously the obvious question comes, why would you use homebrew rules?
I personally use homebrew rules to fix, in quotation marks, some struggles I have with the, for example, Dungeons and Dragons rule set as rules as written, to just have a better feel or a better way of immersing yourself into the story through the rules, because you can't just ignore them, because then you wouldn't be playing the game. But yeah, just to make it more comfortable for you to play the way you want to play it. Do you have anything to add, or why do you use?
I use homebrew rules to change, like you already said, certain. Well, I use it to rectify or improve certain things that at my table made the game more difficult than it has to be. If a rule gets in my way while playing the game, as a dungeon master or as a player, I don't like it. Like, obviously a rule needs to be there for a certain reason. You need to roll a dice to determine the outcome of an action. Okay, but that rule does not come in my way. But when a rule says, no, you're not allowed to do that action because you have not skill X, then I would say, meh, I don't want that. Because even an uncharismatic fighter can still try to convince the townsguard. And some systems just say, only if you have a charisma score of 8, you're allowed to do that. And I don't understand why you would try to actively hinder any kind of role play the player does. That's the most thing for me. If a rule...
Changing rules or adding rules so you are enabled to do more.
Yes, that's the most important thing for me. Or make the game more fun, obviously. But if a rule, if a written rule, I have problems with rules that hinder any kind of roleplay, because I don't understand why they are in the game. I can understand that they are for power balancing reasons, maybe there, like you need this kind of attitude or charisma score to even be able to convince this already fighting townsguard to stop. But there are so many ways people could roleplay that I don't want to say no. The rule says no, you are not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
If it brings my table fun to just ignore or change a rule, I will do it in a heartbeat. No questions asked. It always depends on the rule, obviously. Like, you could just say, I hate the rule that I have to roll a dice. Yeah, but then you can also start writing a book again, or go into theater, or wherever you want, if you just want to roleplay.
Yeah.
That's something different. You can go LARPing or something. There is just this... I want a rule to enhance the game flow, or enhance my game, at least. And if it does not do that for my table, which it can do for other tables, obviously. Other tables can have fun with a rule. My table just won't for some rules. And
yeah.
Then we just...
Homebrew and table rules are just very subjective topics, because they change from group to group and how everyone likes rules as they are and how you would change them. Yeah,
that's the biggest thing, actually.
Yeah. So, what kind of rules do you use then?
I have 3 categories of rules. I will just use the rules for my Phantoms of Chaos campaign, which is my newest D&D campaign, which is also set in my own world, where I control everything, and not only the story, but everything. It's completely homebrew written, and I have some rules, actually quite a lot. And I think we should just go over them, and you just throw stuff at me that you want to talk about. Well, I have them in 3 categories. Quality of life changes, which are just rules that over time have established their way into my group, and just saying, hey, this is how we play the game, this is how the game is more fun to us. This makes more sense to us. Then I have... then I have rules that are basically just for fun. Rules that are very, very subjective to us, because this is how we have fun at the table. And then I have rules are bad. My naming and stuff is extraordinarily good. And those are just rules that I use to make the game a little bit more harder, but not too hard on them, because I wanted a little more gritty feeling at some certain points.
Without getting too gritty or too realistic or too unfair.
Yes, I didn't want to get unfair, but I wanted them to, in some situations, just feel like the world around them hates them, because this campaign will delve into some stuff that is just everything is shit and we need to get through this. And for that I need some rules that show that the world around them is a little bit more shit. So,
I actually have I personally only use through homebrew rules. One of them would be, I think, either quality of life or just for fun, or probably quality of life. It regards the find familiar spell.
Okay.
Because in the text it says you can telepathically communicate and look or feel through the senses of the familiar up to 100 feet. And within these 100 feet you can control everything the familiar does, basically. But I changed it a bit, because you can it just adds on to that, because past the 100 feet range you can in my games you can still see and hear through the familiar, but can't actively control it.
Oh, okay.
For example, if you tell your familiar to check out a certain location, being it a bird or a bug or whatever may creep around in the forest. It may happen that beyond the 100 feet range, the familiar just suddenly gets distracted by something. Because after the range, it has a mind of its own, but you can still see and hear through the familiar. So maybe even it could be possibly a good thing sometimes, because then you would, for example, catch guard movements that you wouldn't have otherwise when the familiar just went straight to the point it should have. But because the 100 feet range is fairly low, because you can reach that in a fight easily, the distance, I think to enable my players more, or to encourage them to scout more, to get a better plan and a better feel for the situation, I allow them to see through the familiar beyond the 100 foot range, but not actively control exactly where it's going.
That's actually something that, that's something. Maybe I will adapt that to my game if I ever have people that use Fight Familiar. Actually,
yeah, it doesn't come up that often, but if it does, I just like to have it ready.
Okay, yeah. I will just go through my list.
Exactly.
I will just start with my list. Well, I think the most obvious. Okay, no, it's not obvious, but I think one of the most used homebrew rules is the improved critical rule, which instead of doubling the number of dice you roll when critically striking in combat, you just add max damage to a normal damage roll.
I actually used that rule as well, because I always felt the crits sometimes don't have that much of a punch behind it that they should have being a crit, because you can roll more damage with a normal attack than with a crit. Because if you roll double ones on a greatsword and then just double that, it does 4 plus your modifiers, and it feels a bit whack. You just
whack,
like you slap them with your with the blunt side of the blade instead of slicing through him.
I think that's part. That's part of that is that, which is a quality of life change that I don't even regard as a homebrew rule, but many people actually do. Every natural 1 for me is a critical failure, and every natural 20 is a critical success, even out of combat. Which normal D&D is not that. Isn't a given, actually. 20 is just a 20 plus. For me, a 20 is a finished roll. Many people will say now, yeah, but how can a person with a 5% chance just fail? It's just how this game is more fun to us as a group, because there's always a chance of failure. There's always a chance of success. Because if I tell my players, hey, you can only succeed on this roll. Okay, the DC for a roll is 25, and I have a PC that has a +4. He cannot get that roll done. Never ever. In normal rules, because 20 plus 4 is 24 and not 25. The DC is not met, and he fails the roll. Where's the fun in that? If not, because we use the dice just so to measure any kind of chance and luck in the game, and skill obviously too, but it's just chance. Proficiency bonuses and modifiers, those are skills. This is how good you are. This is the baseline. And I think that when you roll a 20, you should always succeed. And everyone who, even the most skilled of knights, can still trip over anything and fall down. That's a natural 1 for me. I know that the percentage is high, but that's just how we do it, because it feels way more fun that way.
It raises the stakes, because you have always the fear, to say so, in the back of your head that everything you do is able to fail.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, you have that little spark of hope regarding whatever you do, it can succeed as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because that may spark creativity in completely bonkers plans. They can suddenly succeed, or even the most thought out plan can fail.
Yes.
And that's just what can happen in real life as well. Because no matter how much you plan, something can always go wrong. And I think that is represented by that role.
Yes, this is just how we do it. We like it. I will agree on the fact that the percentages for critical failure and critical success are high, but that's just how the D20 works.
Yeah.
Like I come from a system. I always say I come from a system, but it's just the system I started with, where you roll the D20, and if you roll a 1 or 20, you roll that dice again and look if you then really crit fail or just fail, which increases those chances, obviously, so it's way more accurate. But I just like this. Oh, I rolled a 1. Fuck me, I am finished. Something like this just gets good. But that's just, as I said, a role every one of my players agrees on is fun and what they want to do. This is not something I would like. For every rule we will go over in this episode again. This is not a rule you need to implement in your game. If you like what you hear, you can implement that rule. But it's how I or we play this game. You don't have to play it this way. It's just how I do it because... And this is basically already I can give the best advice I can give for homebrew rules. Find out what is not working for your table in the rules as written and change it so it works better. Boom, you have your homebrew rule. Find something that you find underwhelming or unfair in the game and change it. Adapt to the flow of the game at your table. Observe your players. See when they get frustrated in combat and their crits don't deal enough damage. Use the improved critical rule. If you don't want that, you can do any kind of other rule. I don't know which, but you could change. Maybe a critical strike deals still only the double dice damage, but maybe gives an injury or something to the enemy. That could also be. I have a second rule, which is quality of life, and that is a consumable rule, and I just like using consumables as a bonus action on yourself.
Yeah, that's the one. That's... Yeah. I just always thought if a fighter could attack at level 20, for example, 4 times with an action, or drink a potion, it always felt a little underwhelming.
Yeah. That's exactly what I thought too. I also have written down that this is only applicable to some potions, because I have said that some potions in my world just really take an action because they are highly volatile and are not supposed to be opened easily or something.
Yeah.
So you can't fumble a potion of giant strength in a bonus action into your mouth or something. But a healing potion is something you should administer as a bonus action to yourself. Just to yourself. To allies, it's an action.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Because that is something, if an ally needs this potion, it's something you need to do right. But some potions work in a bonus action, some don't. I have not made a distinction clearly yet, but when my players get into potions, which they haven't yet, I will get very clear rules on which potion I think should be able to be... Basically, I will just maybe do only healing potions, and all the other potions are considered too volatile with their magic, so they will just be an action.
Too much of a punch, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just packing too much of a punch to just disregard it and drink it and be done with it.
Then I have 2 rules which make this game a little bit more fair for my players and give my players a little bit more. One gives my players a little bit more of a room to maneuver their character, which is intelligence makes proficient. I call it that rule, which is basically your intelligence modifier gives you extra tool proficiencies. On top of everything you get from your class and background and something. A negative score does not decrease anything, because I wanted them to say, I've learned the craft of forging documents. I learned the craft. One of my players actually is a monk, but not the monk that and he has the brewer supplies as a tool proficiency, but he does not want to brew beer. He wants to make wine. So we made a specific tool for him, which is just a winery set. So he can make all sorts of red and white wines. Yeah. That's another tool proficiency, for example, that he got from his intelligence modifier. It's just so these so the players can play a little bit more around the intelligence score. I know that this increases the effectiveness of the intelligence score already, because intelligence has so many skill proficiencies, so many skills: Arcana, History, Investigation.
All huge, important stats.
Yes. So it makes intelligence a little bit more OP, you could say. But
most of the time, the tools proficiencies are there for flavor most of the time. Because most of the tool proficiencies you could always go with according skill.
Yes.
In one of the categories of the attributes, but it just adds a little flavor to it.
It's just so my players can say, hey, I actually can do this. I can make wines, I can forge documents and all that stuff. And then I have the last quality of life change, which is basically a very, very big rule. And that's just because, as again, I come from a system where you get these fate chips, you could say. You get 3 of them per session. You get 1 back per session ending. So you have 3, then you can use 2, and then you get 1 back, and then you can use 1, and then you get 1 back, and then you use none and get 1 back, and now 3 again. The thing about these chips is you can control fate with them. And I like that somewhat, because they are the heroes of the story, and they should have just a little bit more say in something. And this is why I didn't want these chips to be in the game, because I think those would destroy D&D, like they are in the other game. So I used cards. Every player gets at the beginning of the session dealt a card from a normal card deck. 52 cards plus a joker get dealt. And you are not allowed to look at the card. You need to let the card sit the card in front of you in the table or in Roll20 over your icon. You can hand out cards there in Roll20, and you're not allowed to look at them until you pull them, until you want to use them. And when you want to use them, you can add them to the rolls you do. So if you roll a skill check and it's just a 10, but you think that a 15 might beat the DC, and you get the information you need. When let's say it's an Arcana check, and you pull this card, and the card is a 4, you get a +4 to that damage not damage die, to that die, and it's a 14. Still does not work, but you used your card and increased the stat. Like you get a +4 for that one time. All good. Card is now gone. But the card could also be a 10. And add 10 to that roll, which then is a 20, which succeeds. Yay, you did it. You get this 1 time per session, and that's all.
And is it only applicable to skill checks?
In one of my campaigns, it's applicable to any kind of roll you do. which I regretted after saying that. But I said I will keep this rule until I find a good place where I can change the rule. Like, I didn't want to change the rule like mid-chapter or something, because that would just feel bad. I told my players that I would want to change this and talked with them. And in the other game, I said, okay, only skill checks and attack rolls. Anything you more or less roll with a d20. So also saving throws. But no damage die, no death saves, no... If I ask you to roll a d20 without anything else, you can't apply this card there, obviously.
Yeah.
You can't say, no, this 19 I rolled is now a 22. No, I have a d20 table. I need to have a 20 there. Yeah, but this rule is fairly good for us because it gives my players a little bit of control, but not slightly enough to really change the game. It's a one-time thing, and they can use it, and if they don't, they lose the card. And if the card is a joker, that skill check is an automatic crit. So if you don't use the joker, you lost the chance of using it.
So basically the joker turns the roll into a net 20, basically.
Yes, so even if you roll a net 1 and want to take the 1 in 53 chance of pulling a joker out of that card, you can do that. It could work. One of my players had a joker and did not use it once. I've never had a joker after that, so... Yes.
But I'll definitely experiment with that one. It sounds fun.
A lot of people told me that maybe you could say every card below a 6 is actually a deduction of points. And they get 2 cards. But I didn't work out how that would work in Roll20, because when you click on your cards, you see all the cards, and that is not something I would want. But I can see how that would work, because like I said, if you want to adapt any kind of these rules I present now to anyone listening, feel free to. I have found these on the internet, made them myself. Just use them or don't, or adapt them. Please, but if you adapt them, write them out on Twitter and add either my Twitter account or the DoubleDM account on Twitter to it, so I can see it. Because I want to. Because if people change my homebrew rules and they are better than what I have written, then I want to change that. I would love to improve my homebrew rules if I can. I will throw 3 fun rules at you, and you can tell me how much you like them, okay?
All right.
Or what you would change about them. I have a very fun rule that many people hate. It's friendly fire. If you critically fail, so net 1 in my games, on an attack roll, you will attack a comrade in range. If you use, for example, a bow or a crossbow, it's more or less a cone that goes out from the direction you were shooting in to hit any kind of ally. If you are melee, you hit one in melee distance. If there is no one, that's lucky. But sometimes there is, and you will hit them. But to make this a little bit more fair, I said, hey, let's make this fun. You roll an attack roll on that ally. So you just basically in that 1 or net 20, basically in that 1 changes the target of your attack, and then you make the attack again. You roll in a d20 to see if you hit. If you hit, you roll damage. If you don't hit, you hit you either miss or hit the armor, but it's just something. Maybe you hit your ally if you roll good enough on that attack. Something that's got very interesting, especially with the improved critical rule in combination, because in one of my games, the players teleported into the cultist barracks. The tiefling drew his sword and started hitting the first. Nat 1. The dwarf cleric right next to that one, and then he rolls a nat 20 on that hit, and deals 40 damage to our 90 HP cleric or something in one single round. And I was like, wow, this is
I did
gonna
not
be
expect that.
interesting. Something like that. I don't know how much damage it actually was, but it was pretty fun to see this player. Because this is a player I adore how this player rolls dice in Roll20, because he says net 20 and then he presses roll and then you see the roll, and it's so amazing when you see a net 1 when he says net 20 and it's net 1, and then he says, okay, now I need to roll a net 1, net 20. It's so amazing. It's so entertaining, and this is why I love this player so much, because it's so entertaining to play with him. But yeah, that's one of the fun rules I use.
So I kind of use a similar a rule in kind of remote to that. I think having a chance to hit your allies is good, but automatically hitting your allies or making an attack roll against your allies with a net 1 feels a little bit too forced, in my opinion. So I adapted it kind of that it can either I basically roll on a table. I don't have it right now, so I don't
but
have
it's like
the
a
exact numbers,
normal fumble table, like you lose your weapon, something breaks. This kind of stuff?
Kind of. So there are basically just 3 outcomes. Either something happens to you, your weapon, or your equipment, which I then just fit to the narrative or the action that has been fumbled. You have a low chance of hitting your allies, but without an attack roll, you just hit them and deal the normal damage. Or you just miss without major consequences. For something I like, for example, for crossbows, if a net 1 occurs, I don't really like always to hit my the other players with it. So I just say, yeah, the bolt misses, and the string kind of jams, and you just have to relocate it and kind of repair it, but without breaking the weapon completely, and you have to buy a new one. So you have maybe to use your next or the next 2 actions to try to repair that, to be able to use it again. So kind of in that way, but not that harshly.
Yeah,
if you could say that.
But
I actually like the idea of okay, you miss the target with a net 1, so you target one of your allies, please roll to attack. That's something, because then you have the chance to not hit your ally as well. Or if you the target becomes the monk, can still use his reaction to catch the missile if it was shot from a bow or a crossbow. That's actually something pretty nice.
Yes, I like that. I like that, making this a little bit more diverse in what happens if you fumble. We just decided that hitting your ally is the most fun, and we want that because it's basically just a rule for fun. Because if your weapon breaks, it's just something like you can also just be stunned for 2 rounds and nothing will really change, or you can be disarmed for 2 rounds or something. I have another rule, which is basically really just fun. Hidden death saves. Changes nothing about the game, just adds more tension.
Ooh.
Players need to roll the death saves hidden, so only they and I see what happens. So the others really need to think about this, because that player's dying. There is no, oh yeah, he has already rolled a net 20 and he only needs 1 more save or something. No. You do not know that. He could have rolled a 1 already, and you don't know that. So it's a little bit more tension to that.
I will definitely write that down.
I can send it to you, but it's just the word hidden death save is enough for the rule, I think.
Yeah. That's something I will definitely use. That's awesome.
And I have another fun rule for you, which is a really fun one in my opinion. I call it click. I think everyone calls it click. Every time a trap is activated, I say the word click. everyone in the vicinity of the trap has 30 seconds to think about without talking to any of the other players. So it's a decision you need to make, and I'm giving you enough time to do it for all the players to do them, to react to the trap being triggered, for example. In this time, you are not allowed to ask me any questions, you're not allowed to do anything. It's just the initial reaction of your character to hearing a trap is being activated, or any kind of stuff that I can more or less activate that now forces, for example, a save from you.
Mm-hmm.
And then the players can say, hey, the player that activated the trap, like I say, okay, you walk down the hallway, and at some point you hear click. That player can say, okay, I jump forward. Then I would say, okay, make an acrobatics check. They make an acrobatics check, and depending on how good they have rolled, I will lower the DC of their save. They still need to do the save for the trap, because they've activated it, and I won't let them get away with traps. But it's a good way to make these, in my opinion, very bad traps a little bit more bearable. Because traps that are unseeable and you have to activate are just pains in the ass.
Oh, yeah.
This way, I as a DM kind of don't feel that bad throwing a trap at my players that is basically undodgeable, because they have some sort of way to control what they're doing with that trap, and it's a little bit more of a narrative device. It still kind of sucks, but it's not that bad. Yeah, and
my mind immediately thought of a situation in which the reaction you have to that click sound just could completely screw you over.
That's the thing. Like, I don't expect them to come up with anything brilliant in 30 seconds when I say click and just stay silent for 30 seconds, because 30 seconds is a long. Like, I've done that 2 times already, and they needed around 10 seconds to realize I said click. Fuck, what do we do? Then they spent the next 10 seconds to just panic in the voice chat about what's actually supposed to happen now. And the last 10 seconds they actually used to form any kind of stuff they want to do. And like, because this rule wants everyone to do initial reaction, not only the player that triggered the trap, is something like one player wants to jump forward and maybe dodge the trap that is just arrows shooting from one side to another. The other one wants to pull them back. Those cancel each other out when you want to jump and someone holds you in the trap. That cancels. So the dex check is normal again. And because they're not allowed to talk to each other while doing that, it's amazing to see how they actually try to think to not hinder anyone else, make the best reaction possible, and all that stuff in just 30 seconds. You can even tone that down a bit if your players are more or less know really well what to do. Like, the paladin or fighter will never grab the rogue by the clothes and pull them back, because he knows they can jump that distance, for example, when the floor falls down. And I understand that. And then you can just take that time down to 20 or 15 or even 10 seconds. You even can make it 5 if you want them just to shotgun shoot at you. I do that. That's something okay. 30 seconds just worked for my game.
Yeah. The first scenario I had in mind was maybe you walk along a hallway with a fairly porous ground. You hear that click sound, and the first idea you had in mind was to drop down to dodge the arrows flying, then proceeding to fly over your head. But then the trap is actually flames coming out from below.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you would have dodged the arrows, which weren't there. So you just laid flat on a flammable surface, or on a surface where flames sprout out of, and you just basically made your save. Maybe instead of rolling a normal dex save, you now have disadvantage, because dropping on a fire pit while it spurts out flames, wouldn't be such a good idea to dodge it. That's just my immediate scenario I had in my head.
That's nice.
Yeah, a little fucked up, but fun.
So now I come to a lot of rules that make the world a little bit grittier and dark, you could say.
Actually, I have one fun rule I like to use, which I adapted from Critical Role. Which is basically the how do you want to do this? To give my players some sort of impact on how they slay important foe they fight against. Because just saying, yeah, I hit him with my sword, yeah, alright, you killed him, just doesn't cut it for me. I like to encourage and engage with my players in role-playing and descriptive narrative. So I ask them, how do you want to do this, like Matt Mercer does, and whatever or however they want to do this, some sort of that which fits the narrative happens. And because of that, some incredible final blows came to life. Because in a story where you seek redemption or vengeance for something that happened, and you finally, for example, if you were captured and kept as a slave, and you find your captor, and just in the narrative, when the roles fit the narrative, it just works even better. In that scenario, my player rolled a nat 20 and rolled max damage, so he just completely destroyed that, and it just fit the narrative so nicely, and then the description just rounded up the whole thing and made it beautiful.
I tried that with my group. Did not work. They just looked at me, huh? Wait. Yeah, I hit him. What do I need to describe about this?
Yeah.
And I told them, yeah, you can describe how you kill him. Do you behead him? Do you cut up both arms? Do you just ram it into his heart? And they were just like, no, I just hit him. They probably thought that if they say I do triple backflip, I will just say, yeah, roll an acrobatics check. Oh, you fail. Oh, no, that does not work. No, I explained to them.
It's just for narrative reasons.
It's just you have finished this fight. There is nothing that's coming anymore. Just describe to me how you want to be cool. And they didn't understand it, so I just stopped doing it and described it myself now. I do descriptions of when they fight every time I think about it, and I think it fits, because sometimes we just want to get this combat done quickly, and I will not describe as much, but sometimes in important combats I will describe how an enemy takes a hit to the shoulder or loses an eye or something.
And I won't use this rule for every foe they slay, but for the final boss or the big bad of the whole campaign.
Yeah.
Something major that happens.
Any boss fight.
That's exactly. The last person.
Yeah.
Yeah, or if they go to an underground fighting pit. If they get the last hit in before he's unconscious, then
you don't
describe how you want to do that. Yeah.
You don't have to, you can, but it's not important. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just add flavor.
I like that. I love it how Matt Mercer does it, but obviously the Critical Role cast is obviously also more skilled at roleplay than my players. I will just say this. Yes, every one of my players hearing this, you're not as skilled as actual actors and voice actors in roleplaying, but you are doing a damn fine job. Understand me? You are doing
don't
exactly...
compare yourself to them.
No, don't.
Just do what you like. Do what you have fun with, and don't compare yourself to others, because
they are actors.
Bullshit.
They trained this. Their life. They trained this. This is their job. They need to do this for money.
They guys get paid to act.
Play how you want to play, and you do it perfectly.
Exactly.
This goes on to everyone. If you're hearing this, you are doing a damn fine job with playing the game.
No matter if you're a player or the DM. No matter how you do it.
No matter.
As long as you have fun, you're doing it right.
Yes. I have two quick rules that are rules are bad. Rules rules that make the game a little bit harder, which is exhaustion at 0. For every time you hit 0 hit points, you take a level of exhaustion.
Mm-hmm.
So if you then get revived or get healed, you have exhaustion level 1. If you get downed again, you have exhaustion level 2. This obviously spirals down if you always stay in melee combat and get raised with 8 HP, the enemy hits you again, you go down, he hits you again, and all that stuff. But it worked good for my group because it made this I go in because we have a healer who can heal me and keep me alive mentality completely irrational. You can't do that anymore because if you do that, yeah, the healer can keep you alive, but only for so long before your brain is just a pile of
melting.
Goo.
Yeah. For the same reason, I'm trying out in my big campaign the gritty realism rest rules, where short rest is 8 hours long, basically a night's sleep, and the long rest is a week of downtime.
Yeah, I have to say I don't like that one. It's just not. It's basically the problem is probably how my group plays their games, because they don't get downtime because we don't take downtime. They don't think about that. Hey, we don't have anything to do. Let's just sit in town for a week or something. They don't do that, so I don't think they would do it in a game where I introduce the rule. So it would actually backfire really hard.
Yeah,
but
that's why I'm just testing it out and see how it goes.
Yes, that's probably good. I have to test it out, but I think it won't work. But it can. And I also have another rule, which changes dark vision to low light vision. When you have 60 feet dark vision, that's just low light dark vision. So you still need a light source to make torches and lamps and light spells a little bit more effective, because my players like to play 5 out of 6 races that have dark vision at my tables. So 5 out of 6 of them don't care about light sources. This way, nearly everyone does, except superior dark vision, which is just for elves and dwarves, Duriga dwarves, I think. Basically, no one has superior dark vision, which would allow you to see even in complete darkness.
Yeah.
Just something that makes the game a little bit more fun, because they need to think about expending for torches and time in light. They don't have enough. They don't have infinite time in a dungeon or something, because at some point they will run out of light.
Yeah. That's actually pretty nice.
I have another rule that is I need healing, which I have a rule which changes the resting as well, which is my adaptation of gritty realism for resting. Short rests you are only allowed to regenerate hit dice in short or regenerate hit points with hit dice in the short rest if you have a healer's kit and someone uses it on the group. And long rests, you need a little bit of requirements. You need normal requirements, but you also need obviously something to eat, something to drink, and some place to sleep. If one of those 3 is missing, you can't do a long rest. Normally, players have rations with them. Create food and water is not is a low-level spell. Leomod's tiny hut as well. So basically, this is all covered. But just something that also lets them think about it a little bit more when they start. Okay, let's go into the mountains and kill something, while not being prepared enough. It's just so they are prepared more on their journey. So they take the time to think about, hey, we need to prepare for this. But also, when all those 3 things are in place, and I think it's something, and it's now a valid point to give this to them, because I don't want them to roll a survival check every time they say we will put ourselves to rest. But for example, if I say, okay, yeah, this is now interesting, do it, then this check has a DC. If you are in a city or something, you don't need to roll. If you are in a jungle, or it's a 20. If you are in a cave, it's a 15. If you are in a tundra or a desert, it's 25. If you are in the Nine Hells, the Abyss, the Pandemonium, it's a 30 plus something. Plus extra influences, obviously. And this is now the stuff. I need to rectify something. You could do a long rest without eating and drinking and sleeping. Well, a place to sleep. You need to sleep, obviously. But the existence of a place to sleep does not mean you need to sit in a bed or sleep in a bed. But, like, if the ground you lay on is burning, I will not name that a place you can sleep.
Yeah, you need some place secluded from the elements.
Yeah.
Where you protect yourself from some sort of environmental influence,
Yes.
like rain, heavy wind,
And
snowfall.
I said
that sort of things.
Everything you have in your inventory that you can use at a long rest will bring that DC down a bit. For example, if you have prepared food, it's a -2 to that DC. If you have something to drink, it's a -2. If you have a tent that protects you against wind and weather, it's a -4 to that DC. Which makes resting in, for example, in a normal forest very simple, because when you have something to eat, something to drink in a tent, that DC of a 5 gets put down to a -3 or something, and you don't have to roll. Yeah. So it's just something, if they are prepared, all is good. If they are not, you are fucked to death.
Yeah, but that's how it is. That's actually pretty nice. If they use a short rest in my campaigns doing the gritty realism rules, I'll try to implement that as well.
It's just something I found very... like, it's not for every role. At some point I would just say, I make a survival check without caring what they actually roll. But if I deem it the correct moment, I will look at this table and see, no. The long rest will not go through. You guys can't take a long rest here. You need to find another place. And then they need to go on for 2 hours in the dark with the dark vision rules. Maybe get a level of
exhaustion.
Get another exhaustion and all that stuff. So, all these rules are basically be prepared in my games, because I wanted you to be prepared. And I told them that. You need to prepare for stuff. If you have information and don't use it, that's your fault, not mine. I also have 2 very big rules. One is horror leads to madness, which is just like you know the madness in the DMG. I adapted that a little bit. I won't get into that too much now, but basically, if you see something that basically is an eldritch god or something, you are terrified to death. You get the new status of horrified, which is frightened and incapacitated. You cannot speak anymore. And as long as you have this effect, this condition, you will each round do a charisma saving throw to see if that leads to madness, that horror. And the DC is obviously a DM choice, but if you do not make that save, you get a madness point. If you fail it, every time you fail it, you get a madness point. If you have 3 madness points, you basically drop. You are out of the game. You're not dead, but you're out of the game. You are basically at 0 hit points and can't be resurrected or healed in this instance. It's just something that you're just out of the session, for example, and the monster can do whatever it wants with you. And as soon as this horror effect ends and you come to your senses again, because you're not dead, then you get a madness from the DMG. And how many points, and then so only if you have 3 of these madness points, you also get a madness from the DMG. puts a little bit more spice into this because we have this stuff. It's this. Hey, shit! This monster is very terrifying. What do we do now? I'm scared, and basically that player's out of the game. Then, yeah, it's also putting another timer on my players. Obviously, this character is now scared to death. What do the other guys do to maybe save him from that?
Yeah.
And then I have one last rule because I do not like that revivification. That was wrong. Resurrection is not so. I don't like it. Like, I understand why it's there, and I won't take it out of the game, but I've made it something a little bit. It's like the Mercer rules from campaign 1, but adapted so it works better. Obviously, people that are alive can do some sort of act to bring the DC of death down, but the DC actually not decides if the soul returns to the body, because resurrection is supposed to do that. So I won't take that option away from the spells, because that limits that seriously puts these spells into bad light. They are getting worse, right? Mm-hmm. So what I did, I made a 40 long table, 40 things, yeah, basically 40 things you roll on this table with a D40, so just use a random number generator from the internet. That is... I lost my thoughts.
Resurrection.
Yeah, sorry.
40.
Yes, you have this resurrection. You resurrect someone. And then the DM or the players, one rolls a d20 on this death DC. If this check does not succeed, I think the old Mercer rules said there is no revivification, which I found kind of bad because the spell is supposed to do that. So I did, if you don't hit this DC, one of the side effects will occur. Like, for example, one of the one is while your soul left your body, you always had the feeling of drowning. You are now terrified of water, which obviously can destroy character concept. But it's something that's very heavy roleplay, and obviously you can, with greater restoration or other means, you can get this side effect removed.
Or a therapy, actually.
What?
So basically, greater restoration or a therapy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every person
that psychological
was,
issues.
I have another one, for example. Every person that partook in the ritual of resurrecting you has now given you part of their life force. They lose 10% of their actual life expectancy. So you, they get, for example, for a dwarf or an elf, let's say an elf who lives, I think, around 1,000 years or something in my world, they would lose 100 years of life. So that so that the human they resurrect gets 10. Another one is a different soul has come to the body with you. So there are now 2 souls in your body fighting for that spot of the body.
Interesting.
All that kind of stuff. I can send you the full list, but
yeah, please.
For example, the number 40 is you cannot speak the name of the person you are talking to anymore. You cannot address them by name. Just simple stuff, actually. Just something like a tick that's just makes your head go wrong.
But especially the last one can be quite problematic if you have an audience with a king.
Obviously, but exactly
That
for
would
that,
be...
it was made exactly for that
Ooh.
purpose, right?
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
So yeah, those are basically all my homebrew rules. Like we already talked about this. I have more rules than you, so this was more me showing the rules.
Yeah, but us discussing how you can or what you should or shouldn't implement maybe, or why we use the rules we use, and just have a friendly discussion. And
so again, this is not me or us telling you how to play this game. This is us sharing how we experience what works best for us. These rules,
just giving you ideas.
All these rules work at my table because I DM a certain style. If you are a DM and you DM another style, don't try to imitate me. Don't try to imitate Matthew Mercer. Don't try to imitate anyone. It just
Find your own style.
Does not work. You can obviously copy stuff, like, okay, like you have with this, how do you want to do this?
Yeah.
You can do that. You can take this. And if it works for you, you can do it. But if it doesn't at your table, like it did for me,
then don't.
You have to stop because it will destroy the game a little bit.
Yeah. Just, that's actually the biggest tip we can give about table rules. Try it out and see if it works. If it doesn't, stop using them. And if it does, there you go. You have a better, in quotation marks, game than before. You just made your game more enjoyable for everyone. So, if you see a rule you think can work, just try it out and see if it works or not, and then keep it as a standard homebrew or house rule for you, or just drop it.
Like always, communicate with your players. Show them the rule.
Yeah.
Hey guys, would you like us using this or trying this out? And if they say yes, try it out. If they say no, just don't.
That's the one I used with the gritty realism rest rules. I said in the session 0 that's something you should do there. I said, hey, I never used these rules, but I think they might get interesting, especially in the campaign setting I have in mind. Would you be interested in trying them out? And they were all fine with it and thought it might be actually a good addition to the setting we agreed upon. So we'll try them out, and if they work, they work, and if they don't, they don't. So be it.
One thing, obviously, again, from what we said earlier, homebrew rules are made to enhance your game experience. Use them not as a way to make your game experience better. Well, yes, use them, but use it to amplify your game. Don't make the experience of the game itself better, but amplify your own experience with them. If you feel like some rules in the PHB are completely wrong and bad for your table, scratch them, do your own. This can be very frightening. Yes.
But just do it.
Changing rules can be very frightening. Like you already said, just do it. Try it. If it doesn't, you always can go back to the raw stuff.
Yeah.
You can always do that and then try another route. Just go a different way. Exactly. No bad feelings about this. If you talk to your players, they will understand.
100%.
Oh, yes.
So, I think that about wraps our topic today, right?
Yeah, it actually does. Feels good.
Yeah. Very nice. Oh, we are talking 1 hour and 10 minutes already.
This is a perfect time to stop, actually, for us.
Yeah. So, as always, thanks for listening. Thanks for Hope or for
GTRPGs.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hope for
Thanks
GTRPGs.
for connecting everyone on that server. It's awesome. And yeah, follow us on Twitter at DoubleDMPod. Yeah?
I have to say one last thing.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know if I should say this. Well, I think it's nothing bad, actually, but while we were discussing this all, I have took a peek into the Hope for TTRPG's mod chat, and I won't share anything that is actually happening there because obviously there's a reason this channel is not public for people. Basically, Hope just said that we'd give her too much credit for stuff, and no, Hope, we don't. You deserve every credit we give you and more. I do not give you enough. Hope, look
Just
at me.
Accept it.
This is a podcast, but look at me. You deserve more of this. Yeah?
Just enjoy it.
This is all your fault. Out of context, that seems so bad. But Hope,
but just
really,
because you say you don't deserve all this credit, we won't stop giving you credit.
Hope,
just because you.
Thank you so much for everything. Like,
yeah.
Please don't think that you don't deserve the credit because you do.
Exactly.
And if I would now start talking about every person on the server that I have connected with and count as some sort of family member or friend, we would be here until midnight. And it's 21 o'clock.
Yeah.
So, obviously, Hope, you deserve everything. You're the best. Thank you for everything.
Yeah, I can't add anything to that.
Yeah.
I just can't agree on that.
So, follow us on social media.
Yeah. At DoubleDM Pod, either on Twitter or on Instagram. We are all on there. If you have any feedback, any tips, or ideas what we should talk about, just feel free to DM us or tag us on a Twitter post or write a comment under some of our posts on Instagram. Just feel free to interact.
Oh, wait, you don't know this, right? I need to interrupt you again.
Yeah,
we have hit 500 Twitter followers.
Oh, I haven't noticed that yet. Oh, damn.
Just today. Today.
Nice.
Happened today at around 12 p.m. Or, at like 12 or something.
Yeah, I can go to sleep happily now. Or very happily.
And you should, because you have a shift tomorrow, right?
Yeah. I have to get up at 4:30.
Okay, we should get this closed up then.
Well, yeah. Thanks for listening and see you hear you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, people.